So the Tigers, bad news yesterday with Tarik SKubal announced to be undergoing elbow surgery to remove some, quote, loose bodies in his elbow. So he is projected to miss the next 2 to 3 months. Did not officially give that timeline, the Tigers, I should say. They're saying that he's out indefinitely. But according to Jeff Passan of ESPN, the main MLB reporter, this procedure typically sidelines players for 2 to 3 months. And I believe this is something similar that we saw with Edwin Diaz from the Dodgers. Had something like this, loose bodies in his left elbow. Again, I can only speculate that means, like, he's got bone fragments or something in there. And we did see in a recent start for Tarik SKubal against the Braves, his most recent start, that he actually had a quick mound visit. And you could see him kind of patting his elbow, looking at the dugout. So he's clearly signaling that there was at least some sort of discomfort going on there with his elbow at the time, and he was good enough to stick it out in that one. But according to him, this is something that he's been dealing with this season. I mean, not that it's really hampered him, but it has been a cause of discomfort. According to him, he said it was trending towards improving, but evidently yesterday didn't feel good enough to necessarily start. Chatted with the trainers, wasn't good enough to go. So that was what was the original cause of the late scratch. And then eventually they did decide to go the surgery route, make sure that he's good to go in the long term and is not going to be in a spot to where this could potentially derail into a much more serious situation. So 2 to 3 months is what Tarik SKubal was projected to be down for this season. So at the earliest, it's going to be early July that he returns, and at the latest, looking at about August. So I would imagine this probably means post-All-Star break, which is there in July. Post-All-Star break is what we're probably looking at for Tarik SKubal to return. So, yikes. Yeah, not the news you want for the Tigers. In general, that you're going to have your ace, your best guy, back-to-back Cy Young winner, be down for a minimum of 2 months. But especially on top of all of the other injuries that the Tigers have sustained this season, I mean, it's brutal. What has been going on with the Tigers this season with injuries? I mean, very, very Lions-esque with the injuries that have been going on. And this isn't even including the position players that we already have down at the moment dealing with injuries. This is just the pitching injuries that we've been dealing with this season. Reese Olson, of course, projected to miss the entire season. Of course, it was listed that he might return. Well, I doubt he'll return at all this season, as a matter of fact. And as a matter of fact, that's why they went and picked up Justin Verlander just before spring training, was because Reese Olson, like, he had a setback from his shoulder injury that he suffered last season. So no Reese Olson. No Jackson Jobe, although it does look like he is starting the return process. So we'll see. I mean, that's some pretty good news. We could potentially be getting Jackson Jobe back at this point. But that's two key starters for this team. Reese Olson, he was amazing last year for the Tigers before he went down with injury. Jackson Jobe, little rough around the edges, but only a rookie last year. He is desperately needed for this Tigers team right now in that rotation. So no Reese Olson, no Jackson Jobe. Casey Mize, of course, on the 15-day IL with his thigh injury he sustained in his last start. Justin Verlander, after just a single disastrous start this season back with the Tigers, he immediately went on the IL with a hip injury ahead of his first home start back in a Tigers uniform. And then bullpen injuries as well. Bailey Horn, haven't seen him all year. 60-day IL with an elbow injury. Connor Siebold, pretty solid reliever on this Tigers team. 15-day IL with an ankle injury. And let's not forget Will Vest, as really mixed results we've gotten from him this year. He's on the 15-day IL as well. Bo Brisky, we haven't seen at all. 60-day IL with a thigh injury. And then Sawyer Gibson-Long, we haven't seen him either this year as well. So the Tigers just plagued with injuries this year. And again, that I didn't even list off any of the position injuries. Guys like Baez and McKinstry that have gone down with injuries. And, of course, Trey Sweeney out with a long-term injury. Parker Meadows with that horrific injury that he had out long-term. So the Tigers just crushed with injuries right now. And with those injuries that I listed, you are down not one but two quality starters at the moment. Now, we are going to be getting Casey Mize back sooner rather than later, but it's still going to be some time. About another week or so before the Tigers even get him back. So, as of right now, the Tigers are down to only three really tried and true starters on this team. And Framber Valdez, Keider Montero, and then Jack Flaherty, which, again, of these three starters, one of these guys leads the major leagues in walks. 25 walks issued by Jack Flaherty in 29 innings. That is absolutely abysmal. As a matter of fact, if the Tigers were in a little bit more of a healthy situation pitching-wise, I would actually push for this guy to be sent down. Send him down to Toledo at this point. I mean, this guy has just been awful this year. So, Valdez, Flaherty, and Montero are your three only real starters at this point. You got to have another guy that can be a primary starter, if for the time being, for this Tigers team, because you can't be having two spots in your starting rotation taken up by bullpen games. I get it. This team is known for pitching chaos. Patented 2 playoff runs ago by A.J. Hinch, but the playoffs are a different story. When it's the regular season, you can't afford to be burning out your bullpen. And we're only just getting into May. So I can see the Tigers going with 4 primary starters and having 1 bullpen day in the mix, like we had the last 2 games, of course. But that's not sustainable to have only 3 tried and true starters in your rotation. So we got, of course, Framber Valdez pitching tonight. Jack Flaherty is going to be likely pitching tomorrow night. And then from there, that's when we're going to get Keider Montero again. So you're at least good to go for the next 3 games. These last 2 games of the Red Sox series, you got Thursday off, and then on Friday, you start a weekend series with the Kansas City Royals. It's not going to be until the Saturday and Sunday of that Royals series that you're going to be having to answer these questions. Now, I will say, the likely answer in my eyes is Ty Madden. I mentioned he got called up yesterday in light of the Tarik SKubal injury. Ended up pitching 5 middle innings, which is good. Evidently would be a little bit more preferable at this point to bring this guy at the bullpen based on what we've seen from him in his very, very young career. He only pitched in 6 games in 2024, did not pitch with the Tigers at all last season. And then, of course, pitched the 1 game last night. But of his 7 major league games, only 1 start. So evidently, they've been kind of bringing this guy up to be more of a bullpen guy. He is a primary starting guy that we've seen in the minor leagues with Toledo. So this guy seems like the most realistic option to me. Especially going 5 innings last night, 5 scoreless innings. That's good stuff. Very small sample size. So I think it's, at least temporarily, I think it's Ty Madden time for this Tigers team. He's 26 years old. He was a first-round draft pick for this Tigers team. So he's the most realistic option because I just don't think that there's anything else really there. I mean, looking at the rest of this team, I mean, Tyler Holton, that's a bullpen guy right there. Obviously has started 2 games, quote-unquote started, but obviously only an inning each. Kyle Finnegan, Kenley Jansen, you want to save those guys for the end of games. Can't be using either of them as starters. Brant Herter, who is actually a very underrated in my eyes. He's had a very solid season for this Tigers team. Same thing. He's only got a small handful of starts in his career. 5 starts in 67 games in the last 3 seasons, which I'm willing to bet those were, bullpen starts. So can't be using Brant Herter, like using him as more of a long reliever at this point. And then pretty much everybody else, Birch Smith. I mean, he's been pretty solid since getting called up. Drew Anderson, mixed results, mostly poor this season. Obviously, you've heard me comment on Emmanuel De Jesus, Ricky Vanasco have been very poor so far. And then Brendan Hanafy. He's only pitched in 3+ innings, but he's, pretty solid bullpen guy. But none of these guys are starting material. Besides Ty Madden. Ty Madden's really the only guy that I could see being a pinch starter for this Tigers team. So we're going to have to wait and see until this weekend to see what A.J. Hinch decides to do. And that is assuming that we're only going with in-house options. This is just what is currently up with the team at the moment. There is a possibility that the Tigers go out and get somebody. But I don't really see them doing that by virtue of they're going to be getting Casey Mize back pretty quickly within the next week or so. So this is only going to be a very temporary thing. And even so, hypothetically, if you have Ty Madden be kind of a spot starter for this team, you get Casey Mize back, that's 5 guys right there. I don't necessarily see them moving off Ty Madden, and then you still are just in the same situation where you have 4 starters and then a bullpen game. So why not have a makeshift 5-man rotation there, at least until you get some extra help back in the form of Justin Verlander, which I don't know. I still don't know about him whenever he comes back, because he just did not look good in that first start that he had. He did not look good in spring training. I know it's Justin Verlander. I know the history that he's had with this team. But do you consider maybe having Justin Verlander coming out of the bullpen? I don't know how crazy of an idea that is, but I don't know. Just some options that this Tigers team is going to have to look at. But with some of these injuries piling up, this is going to be pitching chaos right here. Not only these games, these bullpen games that we've been seeing and are going to continue to see, but just to see how A.J. Hinch kind of finagles this pitching rotation together, to see some sort of a jerry-rigged Frankenstein's monster experiment coming in the next several weeks for this Tigers team. But at least it's going to be painful in the immediate short term. I will say at least it is a boost that the Tigers have a very relatively weak schedule in the month of May. Of course, the Red Sox, 2 games left, still a chance to win this series. Got the struggling Royals this weekend, the struggling Mets, ton of struggling teams coming up in the month of May. The only huge series that I have my eye on is that 4-game series against the Guardians, May 18th through the 21st. Otherwise, just a bunch of struggling teams. So at least if you're going to have injuries, now would be the time to have the injuries. during a relatively weaker part of your schedule. It's not like a gauntlet, sort of how the Tigers ended last season. Gauntlet, a lot of tough teams that you're competing with for playoff spots, losing a ton of games that have direct impact on your standings. This is at least a stretch that the Tigers, they've already been doing a pretty decent job winning some games lately with a lot of these guys out. But we'll have to wait and see. And hopefully the Tigers get Casey Mize back a lot sooner rather than later to help ease this injury burden that is facing this Tigers team now, especially with your back-to-back Cy Young winner, Tarik SKubal, out for 2 to 3 months.
If you missed today's installment of On the Docket, podcast it at fox1019.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to tune in live weekdays at noon on Jackson's Fox Sports 101.9 FM.